Welcome to Talk Commerce, where we explore how merchants, agencies, and developers experience commerce and the communities they work and live in. Don't forget to collect your free joke at the end of this intro. This week we interview Alessandro Ronchi with Bitbull, a Magento agency in Italy. He has organized Magento events like Mage Titans and appeared at many of Magento conferences across the world. He is a member of the Magento Association Content Committee. We start off with Brent showing off his t-shirt from the X-Commerce event in San Francisco in 2021 that kicks off a month of Magento t-shirts. We talk about the Magento Association and the Magento community. We dive into the original Meet Magento and share some criticisms about how it was organized. We talk about the importance of small events and why the Magento Association needs to pay attention to these smaller events. We discuss Magento 2 and its future. There is some foreshadowing on helping Adobe understand that merchants want to see a roadmap, and it's important no matter if it's open source or commerce. We'll learn that Alessandro's heart is in Magento, and he is still in love with Magento. Oh, amor. We'll learn about Alessandro's passion, and guess what? It's running. Do you want to hear a joke about documentation? Oh wait, it's not done yet. The Talk Commerce podcast is sponsored by SwiftOtter. E-commerce developers solve problems daily. In fact, some of those seem like mountainous hurdles that must be climbed in a matter of hours. Stress levels can go through the roof. No wonder the plague of burnout affects developers too. But there's a vaccine for that. Investing time in your career will take you farther than you ever imagined. Meet SwiftOtter. SwiftOtter exists to help you become the e-commerce hero that is indispensable and irreplaceable at your company. We do this through Magento certification study materials and Joseph Maxwell's most recent book, The Art of E-commerce Debugging. Go to swiftotter.com to learn more about how you can quickly climb the ranks in your quest to be a better developer. While you're there, use the coupon code TALKCommerce for 15% off any digital goods at swiftotter.com. Cloud is the new normal for companies of any size. Buying, maintaining, upgrading, and disposing of machines is expensive and complicated. Amazon Web Services, managed by eWay Corp, offers an easy-to-use, flexible, cost-effective solution to all your infrastructure needs. eWay Corp can provide a secure, reliable, scalable, high-performance network that will make your office hum, not literally. eWay Corp has saved its customers an average of 31% on their IT costs while adding 62% to the bottom line efficiency. To top that, their customers have seen 43% fewer security incidents. Go to ewaycorp.com to learn how you can start saving money and headaches by moving to the cloud. That's ewaycorp.com. My name is Brent Peterson, and I'm your host. Please remember to subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Talk Commerce. All right, welcome to this special Italian edition of Talk Commerce. Today I have Alessandro Ronchi. Alessandro, why don't you introduce yourself, and if I've said your last name wrong, please correct me.
Okay, ciao. That means hello in Italian. Yes, my last name is Ronchi. Yeah, so it's very difficult for a native English speaker to pronounce it well. Don't worry. Yeah, from Italy. Many people know me as a long-time Magento community member. All started in 2008 or 9 with Magento 1, and I'm still here. Yes, I'm in the community since then, and in the first years I didn't show off too much. I organized something in Italy. Then I started appearing in international conferences and doing more and more things. Now I'm on my 4th year as a maintainer, and I'm also a member of the Magento Association content committee. And I have a recent passion that about which we will talk later, maybe.
All right, great. Good to have you on the show today. I want to just point out for the people that are listening that I have my Magento
Yeah,
X.commerce shirt on today from the 2011 show in San Francisco, which was one of the funnest shows and one of the oddest shows right after eBay purchased Magento. And I can't find my original shirt from the original Magento Imagine, but I think this is one of the oldest shirts that I have still left from the glory days. Can we say the glory days of Magento way back?
I think so. Because Magento is not Magento anymore. It should be Adobe Commerce, but we are too used to call it Magento. So yeah, the glory days, I think they are gone. There is a future that we will speak about it. But yeah, they are definitely the glory days of Magento. Probably
Yes.
not the best period, the one represented by your shirt, because I remember that in that period, the logo of Magento disappeared from events, from Imagine, because there was this eBay thing that wanted to cancel in some way the Magento name brand, but then it won over eBay, as we know.
Yeah, so maybe part of our job as community members is to keep the name alive.
Yeah.
Let's just quickly go over what your role is right now. What are you doing for your day-to-day job? You run an agency, is that correct?
Yes, I run an agency, and I work together with the team. So I do operations basically. So I lead the team, I mentor the team, write documentation, write blog posts, help people designing solution on Magento, and so I'm mostly focus my efforts on architecture and design of Magento modules and solution. This
Great.
is, I don't write a lot of code, but I design a lot of code together with my teammates.
And you also put out some great content on your, you have a weekly newsletter that you put content out, which thank you for that.
I also, thank you for reminding me about this. I also curate from, I think, 5 years now, a newsletter about new resources related to the Magento ecosystem. It's called Matress, and yes, it's a monthly newsletter. Actually, the last issue was in July, and I don't have an August issue because in Italy, in August, things tend to calm down. We have day off periods, so we don't do that much. And I choose to not to send a newsletter this month, but yeah, I will definitely send it next one. And yeah, I have not so much follower, but people that follow me are always willing to give me feedback and help. And I also have a guy that helps me keeping the repo, the repository clean, and he helped me building some automation through GitHub Actions, things like that. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to keep things going and up to date in the Magento world.
Yeah, good. So let's talk a little bit about your role on the Magento Association, and maybe we could talk about the Magento community. I'm also on a committee. I'm in the membership committee, and we met yesterday.
Oh.
Okay, just give us your 10,000-foot view of the Magento Association and where it's at right now.
Yeah, Magento Association was born with the idea of empowering this community. I was part of the founding task force, a group of people that had the mission to set the initial board of directors and the foundation of the association. So the bylaws, the initial things to do in the next years. Then I was asked to join the content committee, and in the content committee, what I do is reviewing content that comes from contributors. Everyone can contribute to the Magento Association blog. everyone can submit some content. So we basically do review of this content, and I also write some content sometimes if we have lack of contents, or maybe recently I had the opportunity to start a thread about Magento fundamentals. I published on my company blog, and the Magento Association reposted those articles, because one of the requests that came to the Magento Association was more and more material about fundamentals. So it was just the right thing to do in that period. But basically, that's it. We have a monthly meeting. We discuss about new content opportunities. There are things that are going on. I don't know how much I can disclose, so I prefer not sharing too much. But there will be some news in the future about what the content committee will publish. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's great. And I know one thing we talked about yesterday for content is that we need more content from merchants, not just members and partners. There seems to be, well, I know our goal as on the membership community is to grow the whole roles of the actual of who's signed in or who's a member of the Magento Association. So I think it's always been a struggle to invite merchants to be part of the Magento community, and there's not a natural, I don't think in any community there's a natural place for merchants, or maybe merchants don't think about being part of any community. They just want to run their store. And I don't think that's any different in any other community. So trying to get them involved has always been a challenge.
Yes, because their feedback is valuable. So if they manage to get in touch and give valuable feedback, the entire community, the product itself, could benefit from them and improve for them. So this is why it's vital to have them on board. And one of the things that characterized Magento Association since the beginning was being focused on diversity. So trying to be inclusive and trying to include everyone on the represented groups. So just don't think like a group of technical people, but have a broad view about all the people that could be involved in the community. So this obviously this made things a little bit more difficult, because when you strive for diversity, there are a lot of things to think about, but it was the right thing to do. We were guided by smart people in doing our job. Some of them, unfortunately, are no more in the Magento community. Ben was in the task force, and he was also a member of the board of directors. But that's how things go. So good luck, Ben, for your new adventure.
Yeah, I don't think we can necessarily, I mean, I know for Ben is a different story, because he's gone to another company and he's representing that company in a evangelistic or a community fashion. But I do believe that there's places for other community members to be part of our community. There's no reason why we can't sort of intermix our communities and learn from each other. And I think one challenge that we've had in a lot of conferences is the fact that it is so focused only on Magento, and especially on Magento developers. And it tends to, the focus on Magento developers sometimes tends to take away any idea that there's something of interest for anything other than a super technical person.
Yeah, we know Brent very well this topic, because we were among the organizers of Mage Titans, which is a developer event for developers, made by developers for developers. And I must confess that sometimes someone criticized this kind of approach, because they told us, okay, you are not inclusive. Why an event only for developers. Meet Magento is as a broader audience. So I know what you mean, and just including developers risk to exclude too many other people that are interested in the whole ecosystem. Sometimes you have to make choices. Sometimes you can strive for more diversity, and that's what the Magento Association is there for.
Yeah, and I'll admit that I was one of those critics for Mage Titans, and
Okay.
I put on Mage Titans in 2017 forward in Texas and in Mexico, and we always strived to include at least project management, and we would sometimes have some merchants there, but yeah, it was still mainly developers.
Yeah.
So I think the other problem, or let's not a problem, but there were some expectations in the past around the size of a conference and what makes a conference successful. And I think the bigger the conference, the better. And there was always this idea that if you didn't get 400 people at a conference, your conference really wasn't very successful. So I think we have to realign that notion. And I think even with the Magento Association and Meet Magentos, there's a place for smaller events, and we don't want to call them a meetup, but we also don't want to say, if we're going to do a Meet Magento in, say, Bolivia, or or even Meet Magento Sicily or something like that, right? And you're only going to get 50 people. It's bringing the awareness of Magento to that community rather than focusing on the conference needs to have 200 or 300 people.
Yeah.
Then the conference is not a success. If there's a format that works and it's a smaller event and it promotes the name Magento, I feel like that should be part of how Magento moves forward in evangelizing its brand.
I agree.
Yeah. So from the content community then, and from diversity, I've had some great conversations around diversity. Sharon Lampert from Adobe has been on and talked about it. There are places that are underrepresented. Africa, for particular, is an underrepresented place, and somewhat, I think, South America. There's a lot of users in South America, but because of the language, it's underrepresented.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Can you speak in you as a you're a non-English first language speaker? How do you deal with the language things in terms of Magento?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can testify that also in my collection of resources, I have very few content in language which is not English. Some time ago, I started collecting resources in other languages, for example. Not being a native native speaker of those languages, I asked for some help here and there, and I managed to have something pushed by other people, but not that much. So I have something for South America, something for Japan, but I agree with you that there are a lot of underrepresented but big communities outside Europe and North America. I don't have a solution for this problem. We try to understand why this happens, but honestly, I don't have a solution, or I don't have an answer about why some communities don't reach out like others.
I'll throw out one more criticism, and we won't. Then I'll stop criticizing the original Magento community, or how Magento, how Meet Magento went ahead and tried to promote its product. Number one, I mentioned the fact that the conference sizes were supposed to be some big size, and I proposed a conference in Bolivia way back in 2015 or something like that. And I was told, well, you have to spend $5,000. And I said, well, nobody in Bolivia, we're not going to get that many people. It's never going to break even. So no, it's a non-starter. And then they said, well, you as an American can't start a conference in Bolivia because you need a Bolivian to do it. So the next challenge is, how do you get anybody that has any focus on Magento to do something in that community when they don't know anything about it, or they don't know how to organize it? And I think the same thing is happening in Africa, where maybe Kenya or something or even South Africa would be a great place to do a Magento event, but there's not a person in that community that has maybe the energy or the drive or the know-how to start an event. And without a seed, so I always see it as a seeding type of thing, without a person going in and saying, let's do this event, and then I'm going to turn it over to a local organizer. I think from a evangelistic standpoint, we could look to the church, the church that, good or bad, they went out and they seeded, and it still happens today, where they seed small communities, and then that seed grows into something more. And I think Magento Association has to sort of look at that idea and model, and specifically around diversity, we need to make sure that we are bringing in that representation. But I don't think that those people that are underrepresented are necessarily going to just come in just for whatever reason. They're going to have to be they have to be invited in, and they're going to have to be welcomed, and there has to be a reason for us to do that. And I think some of the events that we do have to go to them, and that they have to see why they want to be part of this community.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that we did, we organized 3 Mage Titans in Italy. And from the second edition, we tried to pull people in doing speech, even if they were at their first experience as speaker. We tried to mentor them, and we didn't care about the fact that in our lineup, unknown people would have had a talk. We didn't have much attendance, but who cares? We managed to accomplish our goal of offering more diversity, and I'm really proud about one thing. I am the one. Not I, but my company, the organizers of Mage Titans, were the one that pushed John Hughes to do his first talk, and from then on, he became a very smart speaker, and he did a lot of talks, and he prepared a lot of material. So I'm really proud of this, because we were the ones that pushed him to do that. He was very shy. I didn't want to do it, but we pushed him. We mentored. We gave him the opportunity and trust to do that. No matter if his first talk, given that his first talk was good, but we were not interested in the fact that it could be good as Vinay, for example, which is a god from that point of view. But we were more interested in giving the opportunity. Also because we were a small community in Italy, so we knew that we didn't have much attendance anyway. So giving the possibility to new speakers to show off was very important for us. So I'm very proud of this result. And we had a lot of female speakers too, which usually are underrepresented group, just because of this. And the recipe was that of not of asking directly to female speakers to participate, but was that I also wrote an article about this on Medium, was that of including in the organizers female people. So it was natural, because if everything is organized by male people, Obviously, of course, but because of networking, because of typically your friends are male, it's natural that you tend to form a group more similar to yours. So my recipe is start with a group that is as much diverse as possible, and you will have a diverse outcome. That was the recipe, and it worked. So simple, doable. That's it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I'm not on the event committee with Magento Association, and I don't know if there's a stated mission of doing those events. And I think number one, what you've said about having new speakers is so important, because I think Mage Titans, that was one of the best things that Mage Titans did for people. And I know we put on Mage Titans in Austin, Texas, and that was a place where, good or bad, it was usually half attended by Magento employees. Mm-hmm. But it was a great place for team members from Magento to do their first presentation for a product that they're representing or producing. And they wouldn't have that opportunity at, say, Magento Imagine or the Adobe Summit. Yeah. But they get the opportunity, and then suddenly their peers can see that like John Hughes John Hughes has been on the show. He's a great presenter, but he needs some time to get used to doing that, and then get some practice. And these events, if part of the stated goal is to bring on newer speakers and help them and coach them and mentor them to be great speakers, that is another really good outcome of what we can do in terms of the event space. And I think too, if you target your audience and say to your speaker, hey, our audience is going to be 50 people. It's going to be great. We're going to be there to help you. It's not as daunting as going to Magento Imagine and your audience could be 500 people or something like that.
It's scaring.
Yeah,
it's scary.
One more comment on the language. We put on our first Mage Titans in Mexico City in 2017, and I certainly made the mistake of doing English content and even doing the website in English. And I know that in 2018 we turned it around, and all the content was in Spanish first, and then we put some English content in. And we also had, I'm going to say, well, in 2017, we probably had 70% English content and 30% Spanish content. 2018 and further, 2019, we did 90% Spanish content. And I think specifically for some in Latin America, I'll speak to Latin America, the engineering staff in the companies don't necessarily speak English very well, and they don't comprehend some of that knowledge. It's harder to put that knowledge into your head if your English isn't so great. Like, my Spanish is horrible, and so if I'm trying to sit through a Spanish speaking conference, it's very difficult for me to comprehend the technical aspects of what I'm trying, what's being conveyed. So I think the other thing from an event standpoint is to have it first in the local language, as much content as you can, and then some content in English. Because the big speakers like Ben Marks or Vinay Kopp, they're going to speak in English, and they also draw some people too.
Yeah, of course. And this is, we did the same mistake. And when we realized it, it was the third Mage Titan. And we promised to ourselves the next Mage Titans will be in Italian. And we didn't have any more, any Mage Titan because the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, and because also John from Space 48 took a pause period about Mage Titans. So we were waiting about some directives from him. And then the pandemic arrived and we didn't organize a new conference anymore. But yeah, our next Mage Titans would have been in Italian, because we also realized the same things that you realized before us, and I think it's how things would go well, probably in local communities. I also, before Mage Titans, I organized a couple of events in Italian, and I had a greater attendance. The problem is that we were a very little community, and we didn't have enough Italian speaker. There were 2 or 3 of them, and it was the beginning of the Magento community in Italy, and it was very difficult to assemble a conference with enough speakers in Italian language. And we didn't want to do 2 or 3 speech per speaker. It wasn't fair. So we managed to do a couple of editions in Italian, but then the people were always the same. So we started the Mage Titans, and we invited international speakers. We had more diversity from that point of view. The audience shrunk fundamentally, because here in Italy, English is not very common second language. We study it at school, but it's not. We don't study it in a way that we can speak fluently or understand it fluently. So that's it. And anyway, I'm studying Spanish on Duolingo.
Yeah, same.
And I understand when you say, because sometimes I try to simulate a speech in Spanish, and it's horrible. I don't have any vocabulary. I can ask for a coffee. I can say gracias or things like that, but I don't know how to say that you have to not to instantiate the object manager or things like that.
Right. Yeah, and I think, well, my best friend is from Madrid, so he tells me that he wanted to learn a lot of the technical things in Spanish, because he's been in the US now for 25 years. And then he's realized that most of those technical terms are just English, like sprint and backlog. And he's like, before you try to say backlog in Spanish, it makes no sense. So there are a lot of words that the Spanish just, for technical, I think. And for me, that's an advantage, because I'm on a lot of phone calls, in Spanish, and I can follow along.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people think, oh, then they start speaking to me very rapidly in Spanish, and then I'm like, wait, let's slow down. I'm also very embarrassed to admit that I went in university. I took 3 years of Italian, and I remember nothing.
Well, Spanish and Italian are very similar. In fact, I've been in Mage Titans in Spain, in Valencia, and there were several speeches in Spanish, and I could grab 80% of what was said. So we have vocabulary overlaps a lot. So when you listen to Spanish, you more or less understand. And we also, in Italy, we have some dialects that inherited some way of saying or some words from Spanish. But speaking it fluently is a completely different thing. You have to know grammar, you have to know all the variations between plural, singular, female, male, all these things. So yeah, listening is easier. It's just like Dutch people that understand German, more or less, because they always tell me that they can understand German, but Germans don't understand Dutch. That's strange, but
the people or the language.
Yeah.
So just the Dutch, I think Dutch Meet Magento is the exception. Everything's in English. And I think because that region, like including Scandinavia, they speak English better than Americans.
The thing is that they don't have dubbed movies. So they watch to English movies since they are child, and they speak a wonderful English. And one thing that I remember is during conferences, Dutch people, if there is someone which is not Dutch, they speak in English in order for the others to understand what they say, even if they are speaking one-to-one. That's very polite. I love Dutch people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's speaking of Dutch. So we have some new things that are happening in the Magento community that are invigorating it. Willem Wigman is Dutch, I think, originally, although I think he lives in Germany, or he's on very much close to the border. There is a new energy in our community right now, and I think it's coming from the Hufa theme.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. So I'm getting your take. I'm getting everybody's take on this and how it's going to land and what you feel about it.
He did a great job because he demonstrated to the community that if you really want to improve things, you can. So don't blame, act, do what you need to improve your platform. And it took less than 1 year to publish the 1.0 release of Huva, and it was almost alone. Then it was also helped by IntegerNet and by people like Vinay. But at the beginning he was alone, and he managed to do everything alone in his spare time. And this is impressive. And what he did was just trying to reimagine front end and the storefront stack for Magento, and he did it. And we also released our first store front with Huva recently, and the team was very happy to work with that. We still have to learn a lot of things and improve a lot of things, because we also contributed to Huva a little bit, because we worked on the Commerce Edition. So there were features missing for Commerce Edition on the Huva side. So we contributed to that. Other people contributed, and there is a community inside the community now, which is the Huva community, and it's bringing enthusiasm and vitality in the community. Because yes, one of the things that in these days we are telling each other is that we don't know when the Magento will change. We know for sure that it will change, because they announced it. Adobe announced that they are strangling the monolith. So they are transforming the product from a monolith to a composition of services, most of which are by Adobe, of course. But we don't know when this will happen. Tomorrow, in a year, 4 years, we don't know. But we need to know, because after all, we have to give answers to the merchants that want to start projects. So there is an initiative from the Magento Association, a recent initiative to set up open source group, reasoning about the future of the open source. And there is also a lot of talking about this in the Huva community. Willem talked publicly about this, so this is why I'm telling this thing. Yes, the few people that remain, not so few, but a lot of people went away from the community, but the ones that remain in the community are thinking about this, because the monolith can be a good product, can still be a good product for certain customers. So why throwing it away? We as a community contributed to create it. I was also I spent a lot of my time in contributing to the criticized MSI functionality. It's criticized because it introduces complexity and some performance degradation in some circumstances. But for me, it was very, very important to take part to that project, because I had the pleasure and the honor to work together with Magento architects, and I learned a lot of new things about software architecture, and it was really, really impressive. And so that's the spirit of the community, and I would like to see it last long with Magento.
Yeah, and I've had conversations with Jesse Rietsma about monolith versus headless and the complexity that brings in, and then Vinay certainly has strong opinions about headless and reasoning around that.
Yeah.
And really, if we think about it, monolith could still be there if we were to envision it as I'm going to like. Let's just say Magento Open Source packages it with pieces that we can still deploy all at once, or we could choose not to deploy those pieces. That would be a way for the monolith to exist, but still to have, and I think they used to say isolated services. I do believe it's going to microservices, but I think the original Magento vision was isolated services in terms of breaking parts of the catalog up or breaking away the front end. But there isn't a reason why we can't deploy it all at once as a monolith and then packaging that up and then always deploying it as a monolith. And if you think about it from the composer standpoint, we are sometimes just pulling small pieces of Magento in as we deploy Magento. We don't necessarily have to deploy everything. We could update just a composer file that would just update a module, theoretically. There's still a build involved, but the monolith, a non-monolith would still have to involve some kind of a build. So I think there's probably a happy medium that we could explore. I think that Adobe needs to be more forthright on some of their planning to help our merchants understand what's coming down and what's going to happen. And I think you're right in terms of making sure merchants are happy with what's there. Yeah.
At least a roadmap.
Yeah, and I think in terms of what we're seeing from the SaaS platforms, from the merchant standpoint, they don't care if Shopify is deployed in microservices or because it's all for them. It's all one big piece, unless you're running it headless.
Yes, I agree. They don't even know. There are also some companies here in Italy that gives e-commerce service, so their customers don't even know which platform is used, because they're interested in selling, not in technicalities. So it's true. Sometimes merchants don't even care about technology that's beneath, under the hood. They care about it just when it's time to integrate different systems. So they have to ask to their IT department to talk with you, because you have to integrate with the ERP or the WMS or some other tools like BIM and so on. But apart from that, they are not required to know about these things, because this is our job under the hood. So I agree, monoliths or not monoliths, not their job. So yeah, I think that Willem demonstrated that front end could be simplified, and probably this community could demonstrate that also the monolith could be simplified. He says it's just an example. He wrote a good article about how to wipe out unused modules that you are not interested in, modules by Magento, demonstrating that the monolith is modular. So yes, it's a monolith, because you have your deployment is the deployment of a monolith, but you can compose your monolith with modules, which is natively divided in modules. What Adobe is doing is what they call microservices because it's just a buzzword, but what they have is composition of domain services, because the domain are the catalog, the checkout, the sales rules. These are the domains. And for each domain, they will have services, dedicated services. It's not given that it will be in PHP. For example, Adobe Live Search is not a PHP technology. It's just based on Elasticsearch, which is Java. So we need to know in the future, if we have to learn new languages or new stacks, it's important for us to be prepared for the merchants. That's the reason why we need to know what's coming up, because we have to be prepared.
Yeah, and I think the danger or the risk to the monolith is what you just spoke about, like live search. If they start splitting off into those pieces, proprietary services that are run as a SaaS platform, then we no longer have control over that code. And really, you're turning this into one big microservices SaaS thing that you put together, and you have to bind it together with some central. The modular idea of Magento is, I think, where we should be going, where we can choose our services that we want, we choose our modules that we want to put together, and then in a sense, you have a monolith every time you deploy.
Yeah. With the vision of Adobe, we probably would say goodbye to open source the way we know it with Magento. Maybe what will remain open source are some tools, things like PWA Studio, but not the entire platform. That's also why, since we have this treasure, which is Magento Open Source, why wasting it? Why throwing it away? It still has value. Maybe we could keep this value. Adobe will do what they have to do because they are a big corporation. I know that I can't be in Adobe's head. Their interests are far from my interest. And it's right, they have to do what they have to do. But there is this piece of software that a lot of people contributed to build together with Magento when it was a company, that it would be a pity to throw it away. So that's basically the sentiment that I'm catching in the community these days, and I really hope that we will come to something that similar to the Huva movement.
Yeah, and so from the open source standpoint, I think Experience Manager is an open source product. It's based on Java. And I think that Magento is their first open source PHP product. And I think the majority of their products from an open source standpoint are Java. I do feel like that we are going to get enough people on board at Adobe that have to know PHP, that PHP will become one of those, maybe one of the languages, and then that will help keep that open source going. But I also think too that it, knowing how long it's going to take to change things, that we have years and years before Magento 2 would possibly go away. And kind of seeing where Magento is going in their deployments and their upgrades and their patches and things like that. It should even out now a little bit. I think that as we move forward and 2.4 is out now, I don't know if they've even announced if there's when 2.5 is going to be out. I think the roadmap for the next couple of years is still going to be Magento 2.4 dot something, and that we are going to be in this now moving forward state in, and maybe this is where they start splitting out services. while still keeping that central monolith as we talked about it.
Yeah, that's why they talk about strangling. They are keeping, no, sorry, they are taking off pieces one by one, and it will require time, of course, but it's something that started years ago, because when I contributed to MSI, and it's something that happened in 2018, that was something that was already in the plans. So it will require some time, maybe years, but the problem is not how much time it will require. The problem is, okay, I need to know more or less when this will be considered finished, because I have to be prepared for that. The community, the merchants, the companies, that there are some companies that built their fortune on Magento ecosystem and can't disappear from in one day just because the platform will change. So they were also the ones that contributed to the success of Magento. So I think it's a matter also of giving back something to the ecosystem that made Magento what it is. And it's a great piece of software. I confess, but I think that every one of us is doing this. I'm looking at other platforms, and I still haven't found another platform that's rich like Magento in terms of feature and flexibility. Of course, there are good platforms. You can do a lot of things with them, but at date, I didn't find a platform that's comparable to Magento. So yeah, it's hard to think that it could be disappear the way we know it.
Yeah, you know, you bring up an interesting point about other platforms. And yesterday I interviewed a Shopify only agency or person. And they made it very clear that they don't try to fit everybody into Shopify. Yeah. And I think as an agency, there was a long-term expectation as being a Magento only agency that you would never sell another platform, and some of the Magento salespeople would look down on you if you did have a diverse platform offering. But I do feel like at this point it's a disservice, because every one thing can't fit for everybody. And certainly Magento and its complexity and maybe it doesn't fit best for some merchants, and there are better solutions for some merchants. And one thing that we could do better is maybe explaining where Magento fits best for merchants, or maybe this would be something Magento Association could do, is explain how Magento fits for a merchant. And having said that, you know, I've done a number of demonstrations with Derek Harlick in person, where we turn on Magento from scratch and have a working store in 90 minutes. You know, so I think the other thing that happens is, because Magento can do so much, it suddenly becomes complicated, because it can become complicated.
You can do everything, so you do everything. Basically, with Shopify, there are things that are simply not possible. So the merchant can't decide whether to invest or not money on doing that thing. The merchant simply can't. So it's easier from a certain point of view. The choice is easier. You can't do that. You have limitations on API calls. You don't have some functionality. You can't redesign the checkout the way you want unless you use maybe Shopify Plus with some limitations. You can't plug any payment gateway you want. There must be approved payment gateway applications, things like that. So it's completely different. And coming from the Magento world, when you know that everything is possible, even if something can be very expensive to do, but it's possible. And comparing to platforms where you have to admit this thing is not possible, it's not easy. From this kind of transition is not easy for me after more than 10 years working with such a platform. But it's something that I have to do. I have to look at the other platforms because, yeah, I have to, because Adobe is not giving the entire vision of the future. So I have to work for my customers and be prepared for my customers, even if my heart is binded to Magento and will always be. Everything speaks Magento around me, from the water bottle and logos behind me that you probably see. So I'm really, it's part of my life. So
yeah, I think for a long time we had quite a few clients in the music business, and the music business, if they knew they could do something, then they would put enough pressure on a manager or somebody that's in charge to say, okay, let's do this almost at any cost. And it turned out to be sometimes very expensive to do some of the things they wanted to do. The advantage on Magento is if you build that library of those things on a scale, then it really makes sense. But it also turns out that sometimes it's very complicated and expensive to get what an artist might want out of a solution, where the artist doesn't necessarily care how much time or how much cost it is. They really just want to have that beautiful outcome. And I think the wonderful thing about Magento is that you can get that beautiful outcome however you want it. So you can build your Ferrari on Magento, or you could have your Kia or your Hyundai. Not to say that Hyundais aren't as good as a Ferrari, but they certainly aren't as beautiful as a Ferrari. And let's face it, they're not going to perform like a Ferrari.
I live in near the city where the Ferrari is built, so you're touching my heart with this topic. Yeah.
Good. So, you mentioned in our green room before we started that you have a passion.
Yeah.
And let's jump into your passion a little bit. I'm interested to hear about it.
All started in 2018 when a guy called Brent Peterson organized something called Big Dumb Run. I never run before, and I set this goal of I want to do this run. In my case, it was a 5K, and I trained. I followed the training plan that you did with Rebecca, and I managed to do the 5K, and I like it a lot. I've always been the kind of person that likes challenges and likes achieving goals. And then the pandemic arrived, and I didn't run anymore. I also had some problems with my back because of probably not a proper training. In March of this year, I had the opportunity to know a personal trainer. He does triathlon. He's a so-called Ironman. He's a coach, and I asked him to prepare me to run the 5K again, because I wanted to do that thing again. And he accepted the challenge, and he raised the bar and told me, no, you won't run the 5K, you will run the 10K. So since March, I started training, and 5K has become a normal training. I already run 10K, and now my new goal is running a half marathon. And I have this half marathon the end of November. I'm still training for that. And I discovered this passion. I really love running. I never knew that I had this passion. I'm 46 years old now, and I discovered the passion at my age. That's incredible, and I'm doing well. I'm, of course, my time is just the time of 46-year-old guy that never ran before in his life, but I'm finding these things very, very impressive, and it gives me also the possibility to be an example for other people, because with running came losing weight. So since April, I've lost more or less 12 kilograms, and I didn't think it was possible, but it was, and I'm still losing some weight. And it's when you run, you appreciate the fact of waiting less than before. You are a runner, and it all started because of you, because you organized that run, and I had the pleasure to attend, and it was a fantastic experience. I won my medal at the time, and I hoped to realize my dream of running the half marathon in November. And I will keep you posted for sure. I will tell to the world on Twitter that I did it for sure.
Great. Yeah. So we have to give credit to my wife, Susan, who was also on the original Magento Association committee, who she was the one who really wanted to get some kind of race going at Magento Imagine. And then Madeline, who helped with that training program as well. So they've been very instrumental in organizing that event that Imagine has turned into a very big orchestration. You know, I think we had nearly 300 people in 2019, and Madeline has been in charge of that completely since 2018. I think the organization part of it. So that it is a big undertaking, and so I applaud you. That's fantastic. So you're what is the half marathon you're doing in November?
It's in Verona, which is the city of Romeo and Juliet. So it's very interesting. And sorry, what did you ask for precisely? Where is it, or other?
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah, it's in Verona. It's a city in the northern parts of Italy, not far from Milan. It's known because of the story of Romeo and Juliet. So it's a very beautiful city, and it will be amazing to run in the city, because it's a historical city with a lot of monuments and historical buildings. So it can't be compared to Rome, but it's similar. There is also the Verona Arena, which is a small coliseum. So it's very important for North Italy. The city is very important.
Yeah, and I believe there's a marathon there in Verona. I think it's the 42K as well. Because I go to a lot of expositions, then the Verona marathon, Verona is one that's always, and Venice are always, and Rome, of course, are some marathons that are always very popular.
And if you want to know why I choose that marathon, it's because it will be 21 kilometers on 21 of November in the year 21. So for me, this is not a coincidence. When I'm passionate about numbers that recur. So when I saw this, I decided that it would be that race, that run to do.
And are you on Strava or anything like that? Are you recording your runs?
Yeah, I'm on Strava. I have to be honest, my life changed when I bought a running watch, because it's helping me keeping the pace with my trainings. I have this guy that gives me trainings. I copy them on the watch, and the watch helps me keeping the pace and running at the right with the right timing. So. And also another important thing for those that are passionate or want to begin is wearing the right shoes. You know better than me that the right shoes can make the difference. I had some pains in my legs, and I completely resolved my problem in my legs, but just by changing the shoes and choosing the right shoes with the right people. I went to a shop specialized on these, and I looked at my feet and how I did run, and they gave me this pair of shoes, and it's very important.
Yeah, there's one small business that would and should always survive. It is the running shop, and that is exactly the reason, because if you go to a running shop, they typically will watch you do some walking. Better that they see you running on a treadmill for a short amount of time, and then they suggest some shoes for you. And if it's a really good running shop, they typically would say, even after a week or two, that the shoe isn't working so well for me. They might let you exchange it. I know, so I'm a big Hoka fan. So Hoka will let you send your shoe back for 60 days, I think, if you don't like it. For whatever reason, it can be good or bad.
It was not prepared, but my shoes are Hoka.
Okay, good.
And I became a big fan of them too. They are soft and just right for my kind of running style. I don't know how to say it.
But I call them running on marshmallows.
Yeah, exactly.
Very comfortable. It's like a very big plush American car.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm involved in Minneapolis in a local group called Mile in My Shoes, and their mission is transforming lives through running. So I'm very passionate about this. And they bring in people that have been previously incarcerated or in homeless shelters. And really, there's so many things about it. There's a community portion of it, which I think Magento has embraced very well. And even at the very first Magento conference at the one we did in San Francisco, we did a major run, I think, in 2011, where we ran across the San Francisco Bridge. I went with Vinay and maybe Thomas Fleck, and it's been, I feel like it's been part of our Magento community for a long time, and doing that helps to build more community, because you're not talking about business, you're not talking about code, you're just out talking and having some exercise, which the benefit of that is also very good.
That's the point. I forgot to mention the most important point, that running has become my medicine. The way I keep myself healthy. I've never been so healthy like in these days. Even also when I was young, I wasn't such healthy, because I never had trainings like this. So I'm very happy, because I found a way to be healthy without medicines, real medicines. That's good.
Yeah, I know that one of the persons that really hated running and would always complain about running was Philip Jackson.
Oh.
And now he's turned into a mega runner and an ultra marathoner. And I think he did, he's done 60 miles or 62 miles, and he's completely crazy. And even we went to a show last week in Chicago, and on his birthday, he ran 26 miles. So, I think as developers, we end up being very sedentary, even as business people.
Yeah, that's the point.
Making sure that we do something other than sitting in our seats. And as going into a conference, even making sure that we just don't drink. The culture around that is going to a party and then going to the after party and then sleeping in and trying to wake up and drinking a lot of coffee. And, I think mixing in a little bit of social and exercise is always a good thing.
Yeah. And I really hope that one day we could meet in person again and run together. I didn't run in the 2019 Imagine because I had some back pains and I didn't train. And then the pandemic dismantled all our plans. And I don't know if, Imagine won't happen anymore the way we knew it. So I don't know, but there will be opportunities for sure in the future.
I know that the Rome Marathon is on our bucket list for Susan and myself, and the Venice Marathon is also on our bucket list.
Oh, and when? In this
I
year?
think Rome is in March or something like that.
Okay.
So not next year, but
not next year. Okay.
Yeah, we're doing Tokyo in 2021.
Wow.
But anyways, there's lots of opportunities to meet up and have fun. So
keep me posted.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I don't even know where we are on time. I think we're gone way over. So as we wrap things up today, like if you could give somebody some kind of a merchant, what do you tell a merchant right now that would be some good information for them as we're going into 2021, at the end of 2021?
Well, what I'm saying to merchants is that Magento will change for sure in the future. So they have to be prepared to the fact that the platform that they know today can change. So we can try to design the best solution for now, but they have to keep eyes on the future of the platform. So trying to do also good business with Adobe, just because things can change. So establish a good relationship, a good partnership with Adobe just for this reason. And yes, to be honest, today I also suggest merchants to consider different platforms, not only Magento. Of course, if Magento is the choice, I am the one that they could count on to do the job. But I try to keep their eyes open on the future, which is uncertain. So I really don't. I'm not able to not say this thing to merchants, because in the end, if I try to keep things secret, they will hurt me in the future. So I am very transparent with them and very sincere. And what I suggest is, yes, keep an eye on the evolution of the platform, because it's maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but in a few years it will change a lot. So they have to choose the right partners that can also help them migrate from one platform to another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think there's a role for the Magento Association as well to help to be transparent and to help, at least from the open source standpoint, help merchants and educate merchants on where Magento's going and what they can expect. And hey, let's face it, Magento 1 is still around and there's still a lot of people using it.
Yeah.
And so if it's been how many years, almost 6 years for Magento 1, then Magento 2, even at end of life, which there's no end of life announced. So we have we're going to have at least another 10 years of Magento to have fun with. We have a lot to look forward to. And just to remind us, tell the listeners your company.
I work for Bitbull. It's just a word joke, like the dog species, but with B, initial B. And my company is Bitbull. We are a distributed company. So we are in Italy, but we have a couple of guys in UK and Poland. They're Italian, but they live abroad. And that's it. I don't like to show off or to speak a lot about my company and show off about myself. I'm a bit shy.
And sorry. So as we close out, why don't you give a shameless plug about whatever you'd like to to plug?
No clue. What do you mean? What do you mean?
You can promote something that you would like to promote.
Okay.
Anything.
Sorry. No, the only thing I want to promote is to try to stay healthy, to find the strength to move your ass. Sorry if I say it so. Try to go outside, do what you like, run, swim, walk, but try to stay healthy. If you are a sedentarian individual, try to move a little bit more. Try to set training as your new medicine, and eat properly, eat good food, stay hydrated, because this is changing my life. So it's really changing my life. So I can testify with my experience that this works. I had to take some medicine for some level in my blood, fat levels in my blood, and I managed to get rid of them thanks to my training. So this is really changing my life. And that's the only advice and things that I want to promote. Stay healthy.
That's absolutely great. And that's, again, one of our best shameless plugs that we've had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you for having me here.
Alessandro Ronchi.
Yeah.
Ronchi. See. Great to have you on the show today. Have a fantastic evening. And
thank you.
We will speak soon.
Bye, Brent.
Bye.
The Talk Commerce podcast is sponsored by SwiftOtter. E-commerce developers solve problems daily. In fact, some of those seem like mountainous hurdles that must be climbed in a matter of hours. Stress levels can go through the roof. No wonder the plague of burnout affects developers too. But there's a vaccine for that. Investing time in your career will take you farther than you ever imagined. Meet SwiftOtter. SwiftOtter exists to help you become the e-commerce hero that is indispensable and irreplaceable at your company. We do this through Magento certification study materials and Joseph Maxwell's most recent book, The Art of E-commerce Debugging. Go to swiftotter.com to learn more about how you can quickly climb the ranks in your quest to be a better developer. While you're there, use the coupon code TALKCommerce for 15% off any digital goods at swiftotter.com. Cloud is the new normal for companies of any size. Buying, maintaining, upgrading, and disposing of machines is expensive and complicated. Amazon Web Services, managed by eWay Corp, offers an easy-to-use, flexible, cost-effective solution to all your infrastructure needs. eWay Corp can provide a secure, reliable, scalable, high-performance network that will make your office hum. Not literally. eWay Corp has saved its customers an average of 31% on their IT costs while adding 62% to the bottom line efficiency. To top that, their customers have seen 43% fewer security incidents. Go to ewaycorp.com to learn how you can start saving money and headaches by moving to the cloud. That's ewaycorp.com. Thank you again for listening. My name is Brent Peterson, and it has been my pleasure to be your host today. Please rate and subscribe.